Hey there, I'm Kevin.
And I'm Jamie, and we're your co-hosts for Two Clicks in a Pod.
Join us as we explore our missed times, stories, and memories due to divorce and a 1,000-mile separation.
I can't wait. You ready to get into it, Kev?
I am. Hey, Jamie, you think they're going to swear?
Oh, yeah. Consider yourselves warned. Our guest today is Darryl Traweek, Divisional Director of RBC Wealth Management, leading private wealth offices across 10 states. He's been in the industry since 1986 and with RBC since 1994. He's built a career out of leadership and driven results. Off the clock, Darryl gives back as a board member for A Precious Child. He's on the development board of the Children's Diabetes Foundation and also a proud big brother. Outside of that, Darryl's connection to the McClintock clan and family is a long-term friend of Kevin's, and as a child, I got to witness the friendship develop and nurture and grow between my dad and Darryl, and have very, very fond memories of those times together. So today we welcome Darryl to Two Clicks.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you. Glad we're here. Thank you.
Oh, D-Man joins us finally, huh? It's been a long time. Yeah,
it has been. Thank you. Glad to be here.
Long time coming. I was teasing earlier with Dad and Darryl that Darryl is a master. I'm very impressed of, and don't take offense to this, of someone of your age. He is killing the social media game. He is all over it. His content is great. I actually shared, Darryl, it was a Kevin Costner image. So I'm assuming it was his quote, and it said, yes. I wish I had wrote this down, but basically it was that he had found in his maturity that silence, and how silence is more profound than providing a comeback or providing a response. And I shared that. You posted that, I think, 2 or 3 days ago, and I shared that, and I got so many DMs like, yes, yeah, James, like just liking that and agreeing with it. And people I know well, people that are acquaintances. And I couldn't wait for recording tonight to tell you that, again, I'm very impressed that how you're using social media, maybe because of the struggles I see with my own parents. But I love your content. I'm all about your content. I think it's great.
Thank you.
Did anybody tell you to take note of that content?
I have taken note.
Lordy, I'm laughing so hard I'm turning red. Lord, my gosh,
whatever.
That's funny.
Whatever. I have matured and grown into being able to sit in the silence. So I appreciated the comment. And even if I don't do it every day, it was a great reminder of what I strive to achieve in that exact statement. So I loved it. I appreciated that.
Well, God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth, so you're supposed to do twice as much listening as speaking. So
That's right.
I learned that many years ago. Unfortunately, I heard it years ago. I've only learned it in the past few years. And my son, Austin, Kevin, I know you know Austin very well. My son has actually become a really large mentor to me because I've watched how he has handled, he's handled situations, and oftentimes I say, how would I have handled that? And how did he handle that? And it's all through and he's told me, he said, Dad, have you ever noticed that I don't talk as much as you? And but I took that to heart, not as a criticism, but literally just as an observation of, and I said, yes. So I think that is so powerful. And I start seeing a lot of those types of quotes. I read a lot of inspirational stuff. I listen to a lot of inspirational and listen to different motivational podcasts. I read a lot of books. I think I've mentioned a few of these to you in the past, just the people that I sort of follow on my social media. If you look at it, it's like I follow Alpha Mindset. I follow David Goggins. I follow all these various people. And it's because I'm so inspired when you're not feeling, up to your 100%.
Yeah.
And you can read this. It's like it's a shot of adrenaline that hits you that says, okay, this is not a pity party. You're not a victim. Move forward. They can't hurt you. And, as David Goggins says, they can't hurt me.
Yeah. Well,
that's an amazing point. Yes, it is, because I'm the same way. I love reading it in a book because it just affirms, and I'm a big affirmation lover. I always felt like I just need affirmation by the bucket load. But when somebody comes forward and you hear what you've been telling yourself or asking of others, and it just resonates and it hits you right there straight in the eyes. I mean, it's like your day gets rebooted right there. It's just such a big rush to say, well, thank you. Thank you for that. Thanks for bringing that forward. For sure. It is very, I love the word impactful. And I relate to that statement, Darryl. It's awesome.
Well, and even if, to your point, Dad, if I don't live my life I like these things where it makes me, it puts it back to the forefront of my mind of the way I want to be living or changing. So, again, it sounds silly, but I get very moved by those things when they resonate in what I'm dealing with. And I've been dealing with some stuff personally, and it hit the exact chord I needed on that day to be like, you know what? That's right. Just sit in the silence and be the best you. And that doesn't mean you have to give anything more to this situation. And
you're good enough, and you matter, and you're good enough.
Yeah.
Jamie, there's to this what it adds to the reason that I put these things out is that there's a guy, his name is Bob Proctor, and he does lots and lots of YouTubes. He does lots of podcasts. And I follow him a lot and watch a lot of his work, and what he says, and I've heard this again, all of this stuff it's not unique. It's stuff that we've all heard, but you finally receive it at the time that your mind is ready to receive it.
Yeah.
And what he talks about is that your mind is basically set up in two spots. Your mind, you have the conscious mind and you have the subconscious mind. The subconscious mind has no mind of its own. It only receives what is put into the mind. And if you put positive things into the mind, the subconscious mind will accept those things, will accept the positive from the mindset. The subconscious will accept the conscious. And from there, your body receives what the subconscious says. That makes you feel the way you feel. So in my mind, if you constantly are filling with, garbage in, garbage out, whatever you put in, the subconscious is absorbing and manifests that. That's why I do that. And I find myself taking that. It's a process. The longer you do that, what I find is that it helps me be quieter, listen and observe more, and reevaluate how I should approach this, question or situation, circumstance, and how should I actually, what I should have done and what I did do, or what I could have done, or what I've done in the past, except, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's the reason that I do these. It's literally, and it only helps me. And to your point, Jamie, I speak with a lot of people, across the United States, because I'm responsible for a lot of people, and people that you wouldn't think of, like a Kevin McClintock style person, someone that's probably not that touchy-feely kind of a person, or, has strong soft skills, but doesn't, release those soft skills, portray those soft skills out. And they've come up to me and said, has something happened in your life that is causing you to just put this out? And I share this little piece. It's about positive. And I've had one specific story. I had a gentleman in one of my employees in Texas, and he's an ex-Marine, tough guy, great person. And he said to me, Darryl, he said, I saw you put a quote out, or you actually did you verbally said something or whatever. And I thought about it, and I thought, I was having one of those days that my business wasn't doing very well. I was down. I just couldn't get motivated. And he said, it sort of kicked me in the tail that day and said, you know what? that guy's just, what he's doing is he's just doing positive. I have to change the way I'm thinking. And I'm not here to try to, change the world of what someone else thinks. I'm doing it for myself. And if it can help someone else, then I want that. Then that's the bonus point that you get.
Yeah. Well,
yeah, that's a good point. Good point. We get ourselves in trouble by putting expectations on others to do something similar when other people really aren't interested. And you said,
correct.
You kind of wrapped it up correctly to say, improve yourself, feed off of that to get where you need to go. Don't worry that you have to take the world with you. It's all
That is
about
correct.
your health, not worrying. It'd be nice to help other people, which is what I think we all have mankind or want to help others in sharing those experiences, but it's hard to get the people to walk down, as you know, Darryl, I'm sure I know that. Doesn't matter what I think, what I know, and what inspires me. I think the breaking point, you brought that up just a minute ago, is use your soft skills, Kevin, so that you can share that softly with someone else and not try to just impart it on someone else, because you can't put fluid in a container that doesn't have the top open. So they have to be willing to accept it.
Very well said. Very well said. A lot of times in business, in people in general, wealthy people don't try to make money. Wealthy people they have a purpose. They have a vision for what they're wanting to do. So they spend all of their time developing and reinforcing their purpose in their action, and then wealth will follow. If people come in and they chase the money, they end up being short term, because it's all about money. It cannot be about money. It's got to be about purpose. And that's sort of what I've learned just through my own thoughts and reading and trying to, associate with people that, be around people that have not necessarily a like mind, but people that are not like me, but people that I would like to be like, and start emulating them.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, something else you said, and in prepping for our conversation today, that really hit me too, and I'd like to use this to trigger you, maybe to tell us more into your background. Let's tell a little bit about your life story, what you're willing to share. But you made a statement, and you said, if you want a different life, you've got to create it yourself. And I mentioned to you that just really, as simple as that is, that really was a profound statement to me. And I'm curious what your background, whether it be childhood or what have you, that led you to have that drive and that mindset at what I believe was a pretty young age.
Very young. Yes, I grew up in a small town, Denison, not far from Forney, if you know where that is, up in North Texas. And at an early age, my dad was transferred with the railroad, blue collar guy, was transferred in when I was 9 years old. And we lived in the country, a small rural part of the country, a small farm. And that was all I was sort of exposed to. And the real reason, which I learned, that the reason why my mom was the big advocate of that is that she didn't want my brother and I to be in the city, to be around people. She wanted to keep us apart from really what life was about, because in her mind, the people that lived in the city, the bankers' kids, the business owners' kids, etc., didn't want us to be exposed to that those were going to be bad people. They had money, or in our minds, they had a lot of money, even though maybe it wasn't in relative times today. But it was, they have money. That means that they must be bad. They must be, they're crooks. And I've referenced a little bit in this in my book. The other thing of it is that what really got me to where I am today is that I was an abused child. And I ignored that for many, many, many years. And my father never knew. My father was a traveling guy with the railroad, and so I didn't see him a lot. And so when I was home, we were with my mother, and she was abusive, not only mentally, but incredibly physically abusive, and constantly talking down to us about me, I should say, about you're stupid, you're not like them, you're different, you'll never amount to anything. And when you have that drilled into your head at such a young age, when you have that drilled into your head at a young age, it literally has a lifetime impact on you. And through that, you know, I pretty much started raising myself when I was 15, lied about my age to get my first job at Dairy Queen at $1.22 an hour. Yes,
DQ.
I did flip DQ, man. I was a DQ dude flipping burgers. But the one thing I mentioned, my father never knew about this dark world that we were experiencing, or I was experiencing at home. And when my dad was home, my dad was a very positive guy. He was always he always had a positive. He could take any negative situation and he looked at it. He was always able to turn the dial and say, the perception, is there another way to look at this? And he would always do that. He was the greatest inspiration in my life. And he's been gone now for going on 12 years. And I will tell you that there is not a day, and this is no exaggeration, there is not a day that I don't reference my father in a conversation, because it's like he's still here with me. What would my dad do? You remember those bracelets back in the day, kids, the
Yeah.
WWJD bracelet? Okay.
Yeah.
I swear I'm going to get some. What would my dad do? I'm going to have some bracelets made one day.
Let's do
I'm
it. I
convinced of
like
that.
that.
So that's my inspiration. And then as I've gone through my life in business, through business, and I mentioned to you in passing, I've mentioned about a business opportunity that I was a part of that I ended up learned at the ripe old age of 23. Learned that myself and two other guys started a little textile business. And Kevin, I don't even know how much of this you even know. Well, we
I
started
vaguely remember that. I remember it very vaguely now that I've seen it again, but I do remember you telling me this story.
We started in at 23. I sort of learned that. What I've now learned is that at the end of that short stint, the age of 23, we co-founded a company called Berkshire Paper Company, and selling textiles to technology companies. And didn't know anything about technology, didn't know anything about clean rooms, in the semiconductor business, but learned that literally just, OJT. And we built this. Bottom line, there's a lot of things that I did, but at the end, on December the 4th, 1985, it happens to be a Wednesday, I was in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. I just called on Motorola and had just landed one of the largest single orders that we had ever done for this company. The individual that was the chief guy, Nick Kelly, and I'll say his name. That's the only name I'll probably would say out loud. Is he had sent a consultant down to meet with me, go on my little tour to say, see how I was doing, etc. And at the conclusion of this sale, I just walked out. We got in the car, and he said, "You know what?" He said, "I think I've seen enough. I'd like to just have you take me back to my hotel, and I'm going to head back to Berkshire, Massachusetts." And I said, "Okay, fine." I took him there. And he said, "You just take me to the airport." I pulled up in front of the Fort Lauderdale airport. He puts his hand on my leg and he says, "Darryl," he said, "you've done a great job. We don't need you anymore."
Oh, shit.
And it was a life-changing deal. It was a Wednesday because I always traveled Sunday to Thursday.
Yeah.
So I get on a plane. I fly back home to Allen, Texas.
Mm-hmm.
I walk in the door. I knock on the door. My wife at the time, Marta, she answers the door. She says, "Hey, what are you doing?" Because I didn't have a key to the house. And she said, because normally she would leave the door unlocked if she knew when I was coming home. And she said, "What are you doing?" This was the story that made my life change forever. And she said to me, "What are you doing home?" And I said, "Well, I just finished all my business and I just need to go back. I just wanted to come home early." And she says, "Okay, great." Well, I walk in, her mother's there. They were there having the daughter mother visit. It was great. And so I proceeded back to the back to, unpack my bags. And she comes back and she says, "Are you sure everything's okay?" And I said, "Yeah, everything's just fine." She goes, "Well, I have great news." I said, "Tell me." And she says, I just found out we're 6 weeks pregnant with Austin, my son." And I broke down and cried. And I told her, well, I said, we just lost everything we had, because when the gentleman he had taken and embezzled our money from the company, had reincorporated the company over in Europe, bankrupt the company for his own personal gain. And I literally lost my house. I lost my cars. I lost everything. And I decided at that time, after going through my anguish of, what do I do? I remember driving up the road from Allen to Denison with my dad to see my parents. And I was just so angry. I was angry. And my dad looked at me, and this is one of the things that I'm so grateful for what he said to me. And he said this, he said, "Darryl," he said, "let me say this." He said, "You are right here. You can go and be as angry as you want, and you can go backwards. But at some point, you're going to have to go forward. So why don't you just save that time going backwards and just start now and go forward and build your life?" That single 10-minute conversation impacted the rest of my life, of not dwelling on the past. The past is exactly that. We're here, go forward. I talk about never again, always forward, only up. That's my motto.
Mm-hmm.
Never again, always forward, only up. And that's what I've done. And I'm really proud. And I got into this business, and it's been great. Been in it since '86. And now, here it is in 2025. Been with the same organization for 31 years. It's been tremendous, and it's been positive. And now I get an opportunity to have and share this story 40 years later with you guys. And it's possible.
It's really remarkable and profound. And I'm curious because you mentioned your dad, and your dad being your mentor. It comes through. He's your hero. I'm curious, like, have you done any help outside of that? Like, have you ever done therapy to work through the issues, obviously, of the abuse with your mom? I'm just,
I did.
you are so big, like you are larger than life, and I'm just curious, like, how you were able to beat all of that to get to the positive mindset you have today.
The answer to that is yes. I'm not ashamed to say it. I think it's actually brave for people that actually ask for help.
Mm-hmm.
It's about, I literally look at therapy like coaching. Whether you're you look at professional athletes, they have sports psychologists, and it's all about mindset. Anywhere from the people like Tom Brady, and you've read Greg Harden's book on how Tom Brady was just a little wimpy, little whatever at Michigan, and became, obviously he's, 6-time Super Bowl guy, etc. It's yes, and it wasn't like, how do I fix this? It
Mm-hmm.
was more about just talking it through and getting me to change the perspective on how I was looking at things. There's always, if you sit in the question long enough, the answer will appear. And what I try to do in looking at my dad is, what would my dad say? What would my dad think of? He said, "You're strong." And my dad always used to say this: "You are a Traweek, you are not a quitter." And I say that a lot. I actually reference that quote in my book. It's about accepting who you are, being comfortable with yourself. Someone has to sort of beat it into you a little bit and make you feel it's okay to be broken, to be repaired, because in some form or fashion, everyone is broken at one time in their life or another.
Mm-hmm.
That's literally how I've done it. And then through, constantly, constantly helping people, helping others is great therapy for me. I never wanted to ever have an individual feel the way I felt on December the 4th of 1985, ever. And if there's anything I could do to prevent that or to help, mitigate that issue, I was going to do it. So literally on that date is when after my dad had the conversation a week later, that's literally when I decided I just have to move forward. And I'm gonna devote my world to never trying to make anybody ever feel that way. And if I could ever help someone from being treated that way, I at least wanted to be a mentor and a resource. Hence is what I'm doing. And I'm finally coming out with it at the age of 65 with this book and with all the help. And I'm involved in everything I do involves around children and helping others.
Yeah, it's very incredible. Your resilience, it just comes through very loud. And it's pretty remarkable. I don't know, Dad, if you wanted to, you mentioned you vaguely remember that story, but does that trigger now for you or no?
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to. I know 85 where I was. I remember Darryl being in that house in Allen, and he and Marta there, and being in that living room. I'm not sure when we first became acquainted. It had to be in that time frame, and I would assume, I don't remember. I don't remember you working for RPR at that time. That probably, when did you start working for them?
I was Merrill Lynch is
Merrill
who I
Lynch,
worked
yes.
for. And I actually did business with your mother-in-law.
Yeah.
There. Who
But
I met.
You were still living in that house? What time, yeah. So it was probably, I was turning 30 in 85 in June. So you're obviously 5 years younger. I just know you were still in that house as the first house. And I don't believe Austin was born, is what I don't remember.
No,
but
he was born in September of 86.
Yep.
Okay.
So that would have been in that same time frame. So I do remember that story and not really even understanding what it was you were doing at that time. And I'm sure I remember we were always honest with one another, between you and I, and even Marta, just always knowing what our trials and our tribulations and our troubles were. I think that's one thing that brought us together in friendship, and how I looked at you as a brother, and a brother that talks sense versus my other brother. but the triplets, Clay, you and me, and of course Alan was in there. But we were just always together and traveled a lot, near and far, to be together. So that was kind of the inauguration of that friendship, and then working together and stayed together until a transition in with you in your career, took you down to Houston and then to Austin. Yeah.
That's right.
And even after moving to Houston, just how important it was to get back together and run down there and visit and continue seeing one another, only to, I don't know how long that paused, but we moved the group to Austin in 2013, kind of the same time frame that you're talking about there. I remember being at Shane's in the bus, the first bus, and driving through Oklahoma to pull up behind the church and attend the funeral for your dad's funeral. And
Yep.
that's a memory in itself. So, and then coming down to Austin and reconnecting with you and Marta. And I've told that
Right.
many, many times to the kids of finding you out there on the golf course and getting the privilege of sitting in the bedroom off the pool house and having a place to stay with friends instead of staying in a hotel. That was awesome. That reconnection again. And then I know we talked a lot and went through the separation and you moving on and moving out and the divorce with Marta and that's probably what took you away and took you to Denver and just I was so glad to reach out and talk to you a couple of weeks ago. That was amazing and something that we've talked about internally many, many times. I wonder what D-Man's up to and what's going on and reaching out. So,
I will tell you, and this adds to your question, Jamie, and that was, getting therapy, etc. Some of the best therapy that I received was after I got divorced, and it was looking at the root of what was wrong with, when you get into a marriage, somebody's, one wants to blame the other for whatever the issues happen to be, whether it's infidelity, whether it's, you're a drunk, you're whatever you are.
Mm-hmm.
And when we separated and divorced, she spent 3 years in hard therapy because she had to come to terms with her life. I spent a couple of years in therapy coming to terms of what is my life about? What do I want to do? What's wrong with someone asked me one time, are you happy? And I thought that was a stupid statement. I said, why? What do you mean? Why do you ask me if I'm happy? Of course, I don't even know what happy means.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember one day in Denver walking through the lobby of the Four Seasons Hotel in Denver. I remember someone asked me, are you happy? You just seem different today. And for the first time, I felt that. I felt what it truly meant to be at peace with myself. It's difficult, people in my generation, Kevin's generation, it's difficult to admit that. It's something we see it as a sign. We're taught it's a sign of weakness. I say it's a sign of strength, courage, and bravery.
Yeah. It's interesting. Yes, I just had this conversation with my husband. My husband is Chris, and we were just sitting and reflecting on, just things. And I don't remember what got us here, but probably about a year and a half ago, we just were not in a good place. And I finally got the courage to tell him, and we both worked from home, so the kids were at school. But for whatever reason, something that he had probably said something that triggered me. And it was like, I don't know why I'm going to say this right now at 2:00 on a Tuesday, probably. But I finally just said, I am not happy. And I have lived through a lot in my life, from childhood to adolescence, through the years that he's been a part of, just plenty of things. And I said, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm not willing to sacrifice my own happiness for anyone other than my 2 children. And that's about it. And I was telling him this, I'm like, I'm a child of divorce. I know our kids will be okay if this doesn't work, because I just know they will, because I'm okay. And so I say this that day, and he immediately just was devastated. He said, that's a very profound statement, Jamie. And I will say it meant a lot to me that he got that. You know, it wasn't just a person being like, I'm not happy. He knew that. And so fast forward to a year and a half later and a couple of nights ago, and we were talking about relationships, and he said, you know, when you said that, that was probably one of the worst moments of my life, was hearing you, my best friend, my wife, my partner, telling me that. He said I was terrified. And you know, and but my point in all this is, it was like, but it was good that I did, because it forced so many conversations that needed to happen. And I've talked about this on the pod before. I've talked about this in like maid of honor speeches for friends who got married, where my mom said years ago, the hardest job you will ever have is marriage. And it is constant work and it never ends. And I just remember, you know, thinking, I'm unhappy, but like, I'm going to put in the work, and this person is worth that. And it was really cool to have that full circle moment for him to tell me that. And to you here, for you to say, you know, someone asked you, are you happy? And I'm just, my point in saying all this, Darryl, is to tell you, like, you know, when you're unhappy, I can promise you that. And because it's this feeling of just, it's such, I mean, despair is a big word, but it's like you feel this hole of just, God, I am not my best self. And whatever I have to figure out is driving that. Is it this relationship, that relationship, this job, these people, who knows? But I love the question. I love your response. I actually started listening to a book. It's called The Good Life. And I don't know if you've heard of it. My best friend turned me on to it. And I think I may have told you, Dad, about it. But
Yeah, you did.
they say the same thing. They tracked these people for basically their entire lives. It's the longest running study ever. It's done through Harvard. And it was all centered around just people and their happiness and their contentment with life. And what they boiled it down to, Darryl, was relationships. And you talked about that in one of your things that we were sharing. You said, you know, focusing on relationships, and what, I'm trying to remember exactly what you said, but it was another thing that hit me, because I've just been, again, listening to this book and hearing that. And I want to hear you talk a little bit about that, if you don't mind, just the value that you said, invest in your body and your relationships.
Yes.
And
Um,
I
if
just
you're,
want to hear you talk about
yeah,
that.
if you want to talk about, you know, Jamie, you said be the best version of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if everybody would, and it's an exercise that I did for myself. It's write this down. Most people say these things and then they go on. If you write something down on a piece of paper, and I wrote down on a piece of paper one time, am I the best version of myself? That is the hardest, that is the hardest short statement to ever write down on a piece of paper, because it forces you to physically see that, write it down. You can say it, but when you write it down, you've just made a statement to yourself that you can never unsay. And when you think about you have to have, if you're not spiritually happy, whatever your spiritual connection is, whatever your
Mm-hmm.
higher power is, if you're not emotionally capable of having the maturity and the maturity of admitting your strengths, your weaknesses, your faults, and last is your body. You can't be the best version of yourself if you're physically unhealthy. You're physically unhealthy. You have to be emotionally stable and healthy. You have to be spiritually healthy and stable. You have to have those three things. And when I looked at, am I the best version of myself? And then write down, if the answer was, you can't write down the answer is yes, because you're already starting to lie to yourself. You're not going to lie to yourself if you write it down.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started dissecting each one of those three areas. And I realized that I was physically not in a good place to be the best version of myself. And so that all struck home in 1994. I had a heart attack. I was 34 years old. I was
Really?
fat. I was out of shape. I drank too much. I just lived a crazy life, crowded around. It was terrible. I had that. I said, I've got to do it. My weight was up to 200 and almost 60 pounds. And I said, the doctor told me, he said, Darryl, you won't live to 40 years old. You will not live to 40 years old. And again, you hear these things, it doesn't matter. But when you're ready to receive this information and it actually this really gets down into your soul, that's when I said, I need to do something. And I swear to God, it wasn't just shortly thereafter, I received a phone call from a buddy of mine, and I tried to get into a little bit myself and whatever. I received a phone call from a friend of mine. He's a colleague living in Chicago, and he and I were branch managers of our little local offices in our respective cities. And he calls me one day, and he was bigger than I was. And he called me one day and he said, Darryl, he said, how about you and I run a marathon? And I said, Bob, I can't run a block, let alone a marathon, 26.2 miles.
Yeah.
And we kind of knocked it around. And so the next year came around and the Chicago Marathon came around. And he said, Darryl, I want to do this and let you and I hold each other accountable. And he said, I'll give us a training plan. A guy named Hal Higdon is his name.
Yep.
Hal Higdon, and I have given this, I've given this story a million times in my life. Hal Higdon doesn't even know I exist, but I've spoken of him like he is the king of Saudi Arabia. And
I followed his training plan as well.
Okay. And so I remember I said, I'm going to go run. And I think Shelly at the time was trying to do, I said, I can run. I thought I was doing okay. I was kind of following some of his stuff, but really I wasn't committed. In other words, I was still, I can do this. I had this ego that I should be able to do this. I have a strong, consternation inside of I can do this, but I wasn't disciplined. And I remember running a marathon in Houston with Shelly, your mom. Mm-hmm. And I remember she said, Darryl, I want you to run with me. And I said, okay, I know how to do this. It was in January of 1999 is when, it was January of 1999. And she says, I want to run this marathon, Houston Marathon. We get out there, we start running. I break my knee. I broke my leg and my knee at mile 6.
I never knew this.
Shelly continued to finish. I literally, and this was, I didn't have a cell phone, didn't have anything. At mile 17, my leg was 3 times the size it should be. I literally couldn't walk, let alone run. I sat on the side of a curb right there off of Woodway in Houston, Texas. And I said, I cannot run anymore. And there was a gas station, and I literally hobbled to the deal. They actually had payphones. You don't even know probably what a payphone is anymore.
I do, because I had a pager in high school, so I used them a lot.
I called my wife, who was at home, and I said, you have to come get me. I literally can't walk.
Oh God.
And she comes and picks me up on the side, and I never finished it. I get through that, and Bob calls me, says, you ready to start the training? I started the training and I started the training June the 18th, 1999. I ran my first marathon with Bob October 22nd of 1999. I went from 200, by that time I dropped probably 30 pounds. I was like 230 pounds. I started training. When I hit race day, I was 175 pounds. I was ripped for myself at the time, what I thought was ripped. And I was amazing. And I show up in Chicago. I run this marathon with my friend Bob. Bob ends up, he didn't follow the discipline training like I was following it. He kind of lied to me along the way. Yes, I'm doing this. Yeah. And I finished the marathon. I did a four hour. I wanted to run 4 hours. I kind of ran alongside of him until he really couldn't do it. Finally, I said, Bob, you can't do it. I ran a negative split on the second half. I finished at a 4:39, and it was my first. It was an amazing accomplishment.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, me being an excessive kind of a guy, 30 days later, Shelly and I ran the Dallas White Rock Marathon, and 30 days later, I ran the Houston Marathon again from where I broke my leg a year earlier. So having never ran a marathon, I ran 3 in 90 days. 30 days later, I ran, I didn't run. I did the MS 150 bike. I'd never ridden a long distance bike. That race was, they say MS 150, but with all the routing, it was 180 miles. I did a 180-mile bike ride. I knew I could do it. And that's when I was convinced. So that's when I knew health was going to be important to me. And it's been a very, very important part of my life. And the one thing that I didn't take out of there until recently, I tried it a few times and didn't, but I'm really proud to say that I'm on my 3rd year of sobriety. I completely quit drinking alcohol. It clears my mind. It gives me time to reflect and really accept this information that I read. It gives me the time to be present with conversations like Kevin and with Jamie, and conversations like this. It's literally, it's just a building process. You don't do it overnight. You just build, and you build a strong mind, and you fill your mind with David Goggins, You Can't Hurt Me, who started out terrible, fat, drugs, abuse. He lived, other than the drugs, I literally was David.
Mm-hmm.
I literally was David Goggins. And I see what the guy did. And I would fill my head with other types of people. I filled my head with information from other leaders, business leaders. I filled my head with this stuff, just crammed it all in. And eventually I discovered who I was. And that's when I left home in 2014 and said, I don't not love you. I just don't want to be married because I need to take care of me. And I'm proud to say that Marta and I, to this day, not only am I the healthiest guy I've been in my life at 65, Marta and I are the very, very best of friends.
Oh, I'm so happy to hear that.
That's
Best
awesome. That's
I love-
awesome.
We talk, every week, generally on text or kids or jokes or whatever.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
awesome.
I had heard that y'all got divorced, and I have to tell you, I was like, obviously, I know you haven't seen me in years, but I remember you both so fondly. So I never like hearing that, but I'm very happy to hear that you guys have found your friendship, which is probably how you started, which is how we all typically start. We start as friends, right? And then life can sometimes complicate that, but that's beautiful.
Jamie, you started off on your truth. I'm telling you, what you said, people don't speak truth, and they don't speak truth because they're afraid of the reaction.
Yeah.
They're afraid of what they're going to hear. And then if it's bad news, no one wants to hear bad news.
Yep.
And in your situation, it was a very, Anna Paula, who I give her lots and lots of credit. It's a statement that she says to me, Darryl, I want to have 20 minutes of uncomfortable conversation so we can live a lifetime together happy. And she said, it's okay to be uncomfortable. Yeah. And she has those conversations with me. She's taught me this same thing.
It's very true.
That's a great point. That is a great point. And that is something that I feel is, and Jamie and I have talked a lot about truth in this podcast, of just being truthful and letting the truth come forward. If you don't, then no, if all stones can't be turned over and uncovered, there's always something looming in the background. And I think, and this is one thing that is very important, as Jamie brought forward, and as you just stated, if you can't And the McClinic family always knows how to have uncomfortable conversations. But the problem is sometimes the truth hurts more than the other people can take. And I always make the point, and you've known me a long time to know that my feelings may get hurt, but I'm not going to let you know that my feelings get hurt. And I'm pretty good about hanging my emotion, I think, and my feelings on a coat hanger before I walk into a tough situation. I've learned that more recently, to just not act emotionally. She and I have had that conversation. If you can act intellectually versus emotionally, and just rapid response, and as you say, think, process before you actually respond.
Mm-hmm.
But having that truth conversation and uncomfortable conversations, and those are hard things to approach, especially when you know that your partner doesn't like to ruin a day because it is an uncomfortable conversation.
You don't want to
No.
hurt anybody's feelings, and you don't.
No.
You're afraid to hear bad news. No one wants to. You've never seen anybody walk into the boardroom of a company and say, "I have really bad news. I really want to share this bad news."
Right.
Mhm.
No one wants to do
Mhm.
that. But you flip the switch on that, and you say, as a person sitting in a room, when somebody walks in and says, "Wait a minute, hold everything. I have great news." You automatically rise up and say, "Wow, this is awesome. I'm about to hear something that is so incredible. Great news."
Yeah.
We all want great news.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great people want to hear great news, and they also want to be able to understand the bad problems, the bad side, so that they can face it, solve it, and move forward.
And move through it. Yeah.
Why do
My-
people run from that, though? Why are some people just afraid to actually confront the reality of the situation and face that? Not and from my perspective, or from the one that's trying to have that conversation, if you don't do that, well, it only makes my day worse. So
I mean,
you're always trying to balance. Is it going to be my day that's okay, or worse, or is it going to be transferring that worse onto somebody else because they aren't comfortable in an uncomfortable conversation? They like the fact that everything feels warm and fuzzy when there's something, as you say, looming in the background. Well, I'm just not happy. And that's a very profound statement that your partner, you would expect, would be able to hear, understand, and try to work through. Which,
well, I think, to your question of why people won't, I think the reason, which is because it's hard, because to get to that point, you not only have to register that maybe something else is making you unhappy, but to get to that, you have to know in yourself what about you is contributing to that, which means you are a part of your own unhappiness. No matter, it's easy to say, I hate my job, or my husband doesn't listen to me, or my friends are all full of shit and they don't want to live the life I want to. It's real easy to say all these things, but I think what's hard is to say, right, but what about your job? Like, then get a new job. If you don't like your job, then why don't you get a new job? And if your husband's not listening to you, are you really talking to him? Are you giving him a platform to listen? And if these friendships aren't serving you anymore, then are these really the relationships you want to cultivate? And all of those things, if the answer is no, they're not. No, I'm not doing that. No, the job isn't fulfilling me. It requires work, time, and change to get out of that. That's what I think.
Yeah.
And those are hard things for a lot of people. Change is hard for a lot of people. And sometimes I think for a lot of people, it is easier to be complacent in the now than to put in the work to get to better. And there's fear too, I think. Darryl, I think you have an opinion as well.
Jamie, you said at the very beginning about if you want to, what I said about creating, if you don't like something, you have to create your own you have to create your own change.
Mm-hmm.
That's what people don't want to do because people want to feel comfortable. No one wants to be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
There's a lady. There's a great YouTube. You should Google this sometime. It's very short. And if you just Google Duke women's Duke basketball coach handle hard better, and she gives gives a little snippet about talking about her incoming freshman into the Duke basketball program. And she talks about life. She talks about this. She goes, it's all about, you've got to learn to handle hard better. Hard is exactly what it is. It's hard. And the reason why the successful people that are successful, the happier people are happier, is because they learn how to handle hard better. They learn to address hard. You remember the movie, the Tom Cruise movie, when he was the military attorney,
Few Good
and
Men.
Few Good Men, and you
Yep.
remember
Yep.
you remember the
Famous line.
when he's over there, and the famous line said, "You can't handle the truth." Not he didn't say that, but the guy was talking to, I forget the actor's name. You can't handle the truth.
Jack Nicklaus.
That's Jack Nicklaus. You can't handle the truth.
Nicholson. Yeah.
Yeah, Jack Nicklaus is a golfer.
I always mix him up with the golfer. Keep going.
You can't handle the truth. It's hard. People will literally find the easiest way to do something. It's hard.
Mm-hmm.
The successful people literally all have failed, but the difference between the successful and the unsuccessful is that the successful people failed and tried one more time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I love that.
Yep. I mean,
I
you
love
brought
that.
that forward very early on in your discussion, and I think that's point on, that nothing is easy, and better yet, successful people without a plan, without a strategy, and without hard work don't get where they want to go. And most of them know where they want to go, so they keep trying.
Yeah.
Jamie, there's three words that I taught my kids from a very early age, and I wish I would have personally embraced these three words as much as my kids have embraced these three words. And it's accountability, responsibility, and respect.
Mm.
And if you're accountable for yourself, responsible for your decisions that you make, and respect others, you will be the most successful human being ever. Accountability, responsibility, respect. You could pick up the phone right now, Jamie. You haven't spoken with my daughter in years. 50 years or 40 years, whatever. She's 44 now. If you picked up the phone and you called Courtney right now, you called Austin right now and said, I literally just talked to your dad, and he said that there was something there was some things that he taught you, or he embraced and drilled into your head as kids. What is that? And they will all teach you that. He will say that to you, those three words: accountability, responsibility, respect. My son is in the oil and gas business, and their company, he has a company, and they built a new manufacturing warehouse, and he's the chief operating officer of this company, and they were in there to roll this out, and he was going to get all the new employees and all the workers and whatever in there. He sent me a picture one day. I'm at my office, and he sends me a picture, and he says, "Dad, what do you think about this? We just opened our new office. On the back wall of this massive warehouse, he has a giant banner, literally the entire side of this building. It's massive. It's huge. And it talked about the mission statement of the company. Bold Productions is the company. And it had three words: accountability, responsibility, and respect. Dad, that's what you drilled into me. That's the mission that I decided to have for our company. That is impactful. And I don't think that young people today are taught about how to handle hard better. And you handle hard by being accountable, by being responsible, and being respectful.
Yeah.
I can't. I wish I could bottle you up and bring you to Pennsylvania. My son is 9, and he's a good boy. but we are going through a phase right now. And one of his favorite things to say is, well, it's not my fault. It wasn't my fault. And we are talking a lot about accountability. And I'm saying, Parker, I said, you need to be accountable. And do you know what that means? And he's like, no. I said, well, to boil that down for you, it means that yes, your drink spilled, and it spilled all over the carpet, and it was an accident, but it was your fault. I'm not mad at you, but you put your cup on the edge of that table when I've told you 50 times not to do that, because you're going to knock it over. So now you need to be accountable for the fact that you knocked that cup off the table. Nobody's mad, but you need to go clean it up, and you need to learn from that. And I've talked about this with my best friend a lot, about the difference, and with Shane, my brother, about, being irresponsible, being responsible, being accountable, all these things. And it's like, it's so important, because people are not teaching kids this right now. And his first reaction, it wasn't my fault. I'm like,
That's my daughter. My daughter was the same person.
But it was your fault.
Yeah.
You did it. You made that happen. Yeah.
Jamie, I have to tell you, you remember we talked about truth.
Mm-hmm.
And it's about being truthful.
Mm-hmm.
Parker, is that a truthful statement that you just made? Probably would say yes. Probably would say yes. Okay. If it's true, then how did that spill? And what happens is, we talk about truth. Why don't people tell the truth? Because they're afraid of what the consequences,
the outcome. Right.
They're afraid of that. That's in relationships. That's in, I made a mistake at work. We all try to blame. It's easier to shift the blame. You know what? Leaders go first. Strong leaders admit when they're wrong. Kevin's a brilliant architect. Kevin works on a project. He's got a client. Kevin messed up on some engineering calculation. It sets the project back. You might have, here's the presentation. Here's what it is. Here's what the pricing of that project is. Kevin made a miscalculation on an engineering situation, which could have possibly impacted, the cost of this job, the timing of this job, etc. You know what? I literally, does Kevin stand up and say, it's really not my fault, you gave me the bad numbers? Well, if the guy gave you bad numbers, then it's not Kevin's fault. But if Kevin just, either Kevin just miscalculated or misestimated or whatever, it's Kevin's fault.
Mm-hmm.
And so people, if you just stand up and say, I'm sorry, I was wrong, I apologize, I'm going to take responsibility and I'm going to make it right, I'm going to fix that. That's why Kevin is successful today. That's why he's a successful human being today, because he takes that and puts it in every aspect of his life. And that's what I've always valued about Kevin. And hence I can see in just this short time that we've been together, Jamie, you are brilliant. And I know this is not about Jamie today, but I'm making this comment about Jamie today. Jamie, I'm so impressed. I'm just watching these podcasts and watch how you present yourself. You're mature beyond your years. Because why? Because you know how to, the growth that you're exuding by addressing a hard situation. Simon Sinek said, everybody knows who Simon Sinek is. Simon Sinek says, start where you are. Everybody is worried about where they're starting because it might not be the expectation of someone else. Start right here. We've been married 19 years, 6 years, 20 years, 5 years, 8 years, 10. It doesn't matter. I can't believe I'm going to be a failure if I address this. No, start where you are. You will never fix a problem unless you first of all stand up and say, I have a problem. Let's fix this problem. I want to fix this problem together. This is what's important to me, period. You started where you are, and I see a brave, courageous, strong human being that believes in the sanctity of being truthful and how to solve problems.
Yeah. I appreciate that. I appreciate that you see that.
I
And you
mean
feel
that.
that.
I
Yeah.
mean that. I mean that. I feel it. I see it. And I will say that this started right here with that gentleman is on my screen, is on my right here. But that's a gentleman right there who has said that. And that's one of the things I've always looked up to Kevin, is that Kevin, I don't want to say calls bullshit. He doesn't call bullshit. Kevin just wants, he deals in, he's a linear thinker.
Mm-hmm.
You do one, you do two, you do three. This is the process. That's the way he understands. And Kevin has taught me that many years ago in dealing with a problem is, okay, and I think like that when someone comes to me for a problem, whether it's business or it's personal, I say, okay, let's just get all the facts out there and let's line them up, and then we can find this solution. How, let's get one before two, let's get two before three, etc. And that's what you're doing here, and I'm proud of you. And Kevin, I can see your impact on Jamie's thought process, and I'm proud of you for that.
Thank you.
Well, I want to hear about this book you're writing, because I'm already adding it to my list. So maybe
it's
share
a great book.
I'm
proud of it.
I have no doubt. So share with us a little bit about it, and when can we read it?
Well, it's
November.
First of all, it's supposed to be dropped by Thanksgiving. That's our goal. It's like real estate and projects. They always cost twice as much, and or cost three times as much and takes twice as long. But I think we're in a good place right now on that. When I moved to Denver, Colorado, I played a lot of golf when I was in Texas. I moved to Colorado. They say when you're in Rome, do as the Romans do. In Colorado, everybody climbs mountains, everybody hikes and does all this. I knew zero about it. I know it'd be just like I still know zero about wakeboarding. And I know Kevin didn't know anything. And now Kevin's a big time wakeboarding guy. So I went there, I met people, let's go on a hike, let's go on this. So I learned the hiking. Then I started doing more, and I started climbing 14,000 foot peaks. I've climbed most of the 14,000 foot peaks in the state of Colorado. There's 58 of them. I come home one day from work at the Four Seasons, and my valet is a professional mountaineer. I have to tell you this background so that you'll understand the book. And he said to me, Traweek, you're getting pretty good at climbing a lot of these 14,000. You need to go try to climb a real mountain. And of course, I'm thinking, wow, you just knocked me down a peg here, And I ended up. I said, well, like what? He said, like Kilimanjaro.
Mm-hmm.
That's 19,285 feet. And I said, wow, really? I'm thinking Africa, 19,000 feet. I mean, all of a sudden, all the negative, like here's all of the reasons I can't do
why
that.
You can't do it. Yeah.
That was the initial reaction. I went upstairs. I pulled out my laptop. I got on, I started Googling that. I said, okay, I'm just going to sign up. I'm going to commit to something. I committed. I paid my money online. Then I said, okay, I'm committed. I've already paid my money. Now I've got to find out how am I going to do this? I went and Googled the top mountaineering companies in the world with the highest success rates on Kilimanjaro. Came up with a company. I signed up with them. I get back down. This was literally a couple of hours. I go back downstairs. I talk to Ryan Kushner's his name. He's climbed all 8,000 meter peaks in the world with the exception of K2. And he just almost summited it here a few weeks ago. He's a very accomplished climber. And I said, Ryan, I just did this. I just signed up. And he said, already? And I said, yeah, you told me to. So I did it. And that's what I did. So we get on and I end up going on the climb. So I flew halfway across the world to Africa. I show up. We're a day late. I'm a day late because of delays getting there. So I don't have this extra day to get climatized into Africa and get used to this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
We start our climb. And after about day 6, about day 4, we were literally at probably 14,000 feet. And you're sleeping on the ground. You're in a sleeping bag. It's cold. It's miserable. You climb all day. You're miserable. You're in the same clothes. You're obviously not showering. It's miserable. You're sleeping on rocks, but you're on a cot, which is your sleeping bag with a pad, about that, it's about as thick as a yoga mat. And I get up and we have
tell me you broke your leg.
No, I did not break my leg. I get up, I crawl out of my tent at 6 a.m. It's cold as you know what. And I yell across the camp, and our porters, each of the porters, which are like most people call them Sherpas, but in Africa, they're called porters. And these are the people that help, they carry the food, they carry the tents, and we're carrying our pack. They're carrying the rest of our stuff. And there was one guy across the camp. His name was John. He looked like Bob Marley. You have to hear this because I'm not forgetting you're only up. What is this about? This leads right into it.
I'm with you.
So I yell across the way and I said, Marley. I nicknamed him Marley because he thought he was Bob Marley. The Bob Marley shirt, the hat, the whole thing.
Love it.
I yell across the camp and I said, Marley, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm tired. I'm achy. I'm just exhausted mentally, physically. I don't want to do this. He points up to the sky, and you're at that level of altitude. Now, Kilimanjaro's 19,000 plus feet, and so it's always under cloud cover, right? You can't see the top. And I promise you, it was absolutely serendipitous, an epiphany that for 10 seconds, the clouds parted. The sun is shining down on the top of Kilimanjaro. I see this orange glow. He points up and he says, my man, only up, only up. That became the statement as we continued that day. Other people in our crowd, there were 11 people that started, 9 people that 11 started. Then after the first day, 2, they kicked out. And every time that someone had a bad day or, I don't want to do this. I'm tired. I'm sore. I hurt, or I'm thirsty, or I'm tired, whatever. We would all say, only up, only up. And we would do this. I'm proud to say that when we got to the top, there were 9 and 3 of us made the top.
Wow.
The coolest part of the story is that when you get there to the very top and you think you're in a dead sprint, but it's one step. It's literally like that because you have no oxygen and we have no, supplemental oxygen.
Air, yeah.
You see the top of this, you see the famous Kilimanjaro sign. I finally reach the sign, I touch it, and I start crying.
Yeah.
And on my left side, Marley was assigned to me to make that final push. You get up at 4:00 in the morning. We make it by noon, and we're only going 2,500 vertical feet, but that is straight. You are literally straight up. When you're going up, the mountain is looking at you in the face. That's how vertical you're going to try to get yourself up. I cry. I said, Marley, we made it. He puts his right hand on my left shoulder and he says, my man, only down, no more up. We make it that we get up there, we do our, little bit, we go down. What I got to the bottom, that's when only up started. And I was thinking about all of the things that got me there. when I used to run marathons, I thought about what did I have to do mentally to prepare myself. I was, it wasn't mountains. I had to worry about long distance. I had to worry about different kind of gear, different kind of shoes, different kind of hydration, different kind of nutrition. In mountain climbing, I had to do something different. I had altitude, lack of oxygen. You just have all sorts of obstacles that you're sleeping on the ground. You're having all these obstacles that you have to overcome. You have to adjust your mind in a new environment. I took that mindset. I started writing, and I took that mindset and I said, how could this apply to life? And that's when I really got into this whole mindset change. And I started understanding the mind, the power of the mind, of how you have to shift, how you have to shift when you're getting into something new, something different. The first thing is, I want to push back to the, why don't you tell the truth? Because why don't you want to face it? Because no one wants to, I can't, what if I fail?
Yeah.
I flipped the script. What if I make it?
What if I don't?
What if I do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of how that became. And then as I sort of simmered on that mindset piece along the way, I started doing speaking engagements for young kids going from high school to college, and young people that were in tough school districts. And I started talking to kids that grew up in tough neighborhoods, and mom's in drug addict, dad's in prison. They see murders and the reason why in Denver, I got involved in some charities and some organizations. The graduation rate at Denver High School is the lowest high school graduation rate in the country at 62%.
Wow.
We started a program to where we went and raised money to put essentially life coaches or tutors into. We wrote a curriculum. We got it approved by the city. We got it approved by the state. We actually got it approved for some colleges to receive college credit. We made it a volunteer course. We didn't make them do that, make them attend, but if they wanted to go learn life skills, they wanted to learn simple things about how do you open a bank account? How do you balance a checkbook? Little things like that they've never been taught. I will say that 4 years later, after implementing this program, the graduation rate for Denver Independent School District was still 62%. The kids that actually went through that program, the graduation rate was 95%.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
It's all about that change in that mindset. And so that took me into the book. And then I got into, and finally decided, kids looked at me as a white executive at a Wall Street firm. He must have been given this. He had to. I can't do that because I grew up in this bad thing. I don't have what it takes. People won't look at me because of that. I say, use that adversity that you lived in your life. Don't use it. Don't say, I can't go forward because of that. I say, go forward and use that as a launch point to drive that inner determination, that grit. Let it drive you forward. And that's when I decided that I was going to tell my story in a book. Only up, adversity to opportunity. And that and I've looked at this in the country. These are statistics in my research. There's 36 million kids between the ages of 13 and 25 in the United States of America that came from mental abuse, physical abuse, busted families, drugs, dad, busted up homes. 36 million kids like that. And I said to myself, I'm going to write this book. I'm going to go first. I'm going to be brave, courageous, and I'm going to go tell my story. I'm going to be vulnerable and tell my story, not to make money, but to use it as a platform to go find these kids. When kids today, especially in those demographics, when they think about success, YouTube, all of these various, Jeff Bezos. That's who they think about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They think about Elon Musk. They think about all. It's literally, it's not even in their mindset how they could. I could never do that. In 36 million people, I believe there's at least one kid in there that's going to invent something in 10 years, in 5 years, or 10 years, that in 10 years we won't be able to live without, and we have no idea what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I write this book and want to do this is I want to go find those kids and say, you matter. You want a mentor? I want to build a belief system that lets you know. I want to build. People don't realize that Jeff Bezos was an orphan. They don't realize that Elon Musk was an abused, weird, bullied kid. They don't realize that. That's what they don't see. All they see is the billionaires, and they think that they see that. They don't realize how many shots that Michael Jordan took, how many times, how many hours that he practice. He was not always Michael Jordan.
Right.
Yeah.
They only saw the end. And so that's what my book's about. That's what I'm really passionate about. That's my purpose, is live my truth, be vulnerable, and help others.
Awesome.
It's perfect. That's perfect. I genuinely am looking forward to reading it. I am very excited for the path that you've taken and what you're going to bring to others. It's very cool. It's very cool.
Thank you. Well, it's something that I'm proud of. It's important to me.
Yeah.
Remember, we talked about it makes me happy.
Yeah.
It fulfills my purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I share this, and it's really crazy that I've, the more I don't just go out and just start blasting, this is what I am and this is what I'm doing. I literally just, people get to know me. Tell me about you. What are you doing? What are you working on? I'm writing this little book, or, just kind of whatever. Tell me, and I'm always, tell me more about what you're doing. And then they want to come back to this. And I tell this story, and they're like, and I start receiving phone calls from business leaders that are saying, I'd like for you to come talk to, I'm part of this men's group, to, can you come talk to my mid-level managers about your story? And it's not about hearing my story. And I craft the story differently depending on the age group of what I'm trying to mention. But it's all about having a focus on understanding what is driving you, what drives your happiness, what drives your purpose. That's what I'm interested in. And most people don't know why they're unhappy. They may know, but they're not gonna sit down and drill through it and figure out what the issue is.
Figure out why. Yeah.
They want to blame. They want to blame instead of taking responsibility,
being accountable,
for themselves,
and doing it with respect. Yeah.
That is correct.
That's amazing.
Well,
and my what I want to bring up is just, as you've shared, looking at your journey from 1985 through present day, you've gone through your ups and downs, and my point here is isn't it funny how you really found yourself by taking a alternate path route than probably what you ever would have expected to bring you full circle and right where you are, happy today. That's what amazes me, is that looking back through success, failure, relationships, good, bad, indifferent, regardless of what they were, it's where you are today, as you said early on, and where you are today is a byproduct of where you've been, but it's brought you, it's made and allowed me, and I see you accomplish things that I never would have accomplished without taking that indirect path. That's what amazes me.
Yeah.
People think failure. There's a book, and Kevin, may have shared you a copy of this book, Jamie. I don't know. I know I haven't sent it to you unless Kevin has. But Dan Bongino, the guy that's
Mm-hmm.
now he's okay. He's kind of he's a stud. You read his story.
Yeah.
He wasn't always just what he is. He came from some tough
Background.
love.
Yeah. Yeah.
His newest book is called The Gift of Failure.
Mm.
And he talks about in his book the people that bullied him, the people that, mistreated him, they lied to him. He was that guy that he now says, and he says in this book that he now, when he was pissed off at this last guy that, back in those days, he was pissed because the guy bullied him or guy said something to him, embarrassed him, whatever it was that really made an impact on his life. He said, I now went back to that person and I thank them for doing that because that has stayed with me. That has been my driver to move forward. It is a beautiful book. It's a vulnerable book about himself. It's an easy read. I've put it out on. I'm probably one of the biggest fans of, and I didn't know anything about the man. But
Yeah.
anytime you talk about somebody that's of that status that writes that book and tells a story about themselves
Mm-hmm.
and talks about quit looking at failure as bad. Failure is a gift.
Mm-hmm.
Failure is a gift, to your point, Kevin, earlier.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm going to wrap this up, but I always like to end it, Darryl, with just saying any last words, if you could share that you want to impart on the listeners. What do you want to, the mic drop moment? What do you want to leave with us today?
My dad always had a statement, and he said, you can't steal second with your foot on first. You cannot be afraid to take a lead off. You have to take risk, not risk necessarily in business, but you have to take a risk with yourself to think differently. If you want different, you have to create it, and you have the power to create the difference. You have the power to create what it is you want. It's up to you. Take action.
Mm-hmm. Perfect.
Thank you for sharing that. And more importantly, thank you for sharing your time tonight. This has been
my honor. One of the greatest honors, and I say this, one of the greatest honors of my life was when I received the invitation from Kevin and not knowing that it would ever go anywhere, and then receiving your email. This has been the greatest honor. I got to reconnect with I don't want to say two great people. I did get to reconnect. I didn't know you as a great person, as a 5-year-old or whatever you were.
Yeah.
But I've known your dad.
You
And
late bloomer,
really
you.
what's really an honor to me is to see the person that you've become, knowing where you came from, and the leader and the mentor that helped you fight through whatever these circumstances that you had to go through, because everybody has to, but you had somebody that always was on your side. And I see that you were brave enough and strong enough and courageous enough to listen to that, take the pieces that mattered to you to create the person you are. You are your own person. You're an amazing human being. I'm proud of you. And I'm just honored that I got a chance to spend some time with you guys.
The feeling is completely mutual. I assure you of that. And thank you for being the man that I remember as a small child. It is, you did not disappoint, Darryl. It's great to see you. It was great to see you again. Truly.
Well, great to see you, Kevin. I'm going to be down in Nashville. I told you I'm going to be. I'll see you. I think it's the week after your wedding.
Yep.
Okay.
I'm going to be there. I told you I'll be in Nashville for a conference, and I said I'm going to come a day early and hopefully
we'll
connect with you and your new bride just for coffee. I mean, nothing big, but would love to give you a big hug and congratulate you personally on on your journey and your new new relationship and your new marriage, new wife.
Well, thank you. We
Absolutely.
look forward to it. Can't wait. So,
All right, buddy.
yeah.
All right. Well, Jamie,
All
I
right,
have to
guys.
ask you one last question. Are you a
Please.
Phillies fan or are you a Cowboys fan?
Well, so I said this the other day. I have adopted all of the Philadelphia teams, except for
For
the
Eagles.
Eagles. And it honestly, Darryl, it's because I'm just not a big NFL fan. I'm much bigger in college football,
Sure.
but my entire family, as you know, are all Cowboys fans. So it's a leap I just can't take. And but I am raising 2 Eagles fans. My son
Yeah.
loves the Eagles. My daughter loves the Eagles because she's supposed to. But it's a great city to be a fan of sports. I will leave it at that.
Yeah.
Like they're
Where did you go to
very-
college? Where'd you go to college?
I went to Florida State in
I
Tallahassee.
got a great off non-recording story if you want to hear this real quick about Florida State.
Yeah,
My
always.
dad had a brother. His name was James. His brother James, my uncle James, was the first graduating class at Florida State
When it turned
the
to
year when they went co-ed.
nice.
We bought a company, Mike RBC. We bought a company about, I don't know, 14, 15 years ago, maybe 12, in St. Petersburg, Florida.
Yeah.
And it was called William R. Huff. And William R. Huff is a gentleman. His wife was named Hazel. I met Mr. Huff after we consummated the deal, and I'm having dinner at the St. Pete Yacht Club. Mr. Huff was the commandant past commandant of the yacht club. We're sitting down he's a big Florida Gator. His wife went to Florida State. We're sitting there talking, and Hazel looks at me and she says, Darryl, she goes, let me ask you a question. She goes, that name
Oh boy.
is pretty unusual. I know a Traweek. She goes, how do I know that name, Traweek? We go through and we dissect it just in a few minutes. And I said, do you know James Traweek? Did you know James Traweek? Because they would have been the same age.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
She used to date my uncle at Florida State.
I was gonna say
That's crazy.
And then,
That's
that was
funny.
crazy.
And then she married a
good.
gator.
Yeah.
She married a Gator. Yeah, she married a Gator, and Mr. Huff. Yeah, they have, in fact, the business school at Florida at Florida is actually named. It's the Hazel Huff Business School.
Oh, is it really?
Oh,
That's
wow.
cool. That's cool. Well,
they gave a bunch of money.
I bet they did. That's a cool story. Yeah, that's my passion. That's my sports team. And then my son's a youth hockey player, so we've done a deep dive into hockey. That's pretty much our life.
Love it.
So yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
That's pretty fun.
Well, congratulations to you.
Yes,
Kevin,
you.
thank you again for the invitation and the friendship.
You bet.
Jamie, keep it up. Go Cowboys.
Yep.
And
Go
Let's
boys.
hope. Keep our fingers crossed. Yeah.
oh God, it's hard to be a Cowboys fan. It is. I
It
know.
is.
I'll tell you, my mom lives up here now. My mom moved up here, and she's a diehard Cowboys fan, and she goes out and watches Cowboys games in the Philadelphia suburbs, and she wears her Cowboys jersey proudly.
Oh gosh.
She walks in there, and they give her so much shit, and she just smiles and.
my friend Rob Bull, and he's a colleague, is a huge advisor for us in Philly. And one day he says, Darryl, he said, and I mean, it's like he's to the point where it's a little eccentric. And he said, I'd love to have you come up. Cowboys are playing the Eagles. He said, I want you to come up, sit in my box, whatever. So I said, okay. So I show up. He says, now you have one thing that you can't do. He said, I'm just telling you, do not wear any cowboy gear. Just come neutral.
Come neutral.
So they won't. So I said, okay. So I showed up in a pair of blue jeans and a white shirt, kind of like this, just kind of plain. But I had cowboy boots on.
Oh, they knew they had your number.
And I ran I saw him at the tailgate, and he walked up and he said, Traweek, I told you to go neutral. And I said, well, I've got a white shirt on. And he said, Nobody in Philadelphia wears cowboy boots.
Not, except for me and my mother.
Yeah. Anyway, it's crazy, but that was the Philly. He and I, in fact, the Cowboys have gotten so bad that all of the memes that come about
Yeah.
Jerry Jones and the Cowboys, whatever. He's always sending me these, and I'm actually now. I'm so embarrassed of the Cowboys that I actually find those same memes and I send them back to him.
You have to.
Just
Yeah. Look.
Hell, if you can't beat them, join them. So there we go.
Yeah.
Daryl, sometimes you just got to embrace reality, like
Embrace it. Yeah. You got to learn how to handle hard better. There you go.
Right.
That's right. There you go.
Yeah, that's right.
Failure's good. Failure's good.
Failure's good, man. It's a gift. All right. Well, you guys have a good night. We'll talk to you soon. Thank you so much,
Thank you so much.
Jamie, and thank you, Kevin. We'll talk to you soon,
bet.
guys. Bye-bye.
Have a good night. Thank you for tuning in today. With so many podcasts out there, we are grateful you chose to spend your time with us.
And we'd love to hear from you. So send us your questions, comments, and feedback to info@twoclicksinapod.com, and we might feature your message in a future episode.
Also, don't forget to follow us on social and head over to our YouTube channel where you can watch the full episode live and in living color. You can find us at 2 Clicks in a Pod. That's 2, as in the number, clicks in a pod.
Well, James, until next time, love you.
Love you too, Daddy.